सबसे पहले हमारे दर्शकों को दशहरा की बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। वेरी हैप्पी दशहरा टू ऑल आवर व्यूअर्स। Indian mythology says that Dussehra is when Ram killed Ravan. I can also talk about the philosophical angle. It is a victory of good over evil. So then why are we talking about it on the business channel? Well, it is also an indication that how an unknown investor can become a good investor, and how you can actually, by doing simple things, make a portfolio which is bulletproof and is stress free from return. What are some of the common mistakes? They say in English that courses remain the same, horses they always change. So तरीके तो वही होते हैं मगर नाम बदलते हैं, मगर जो ह्यूमन नेचर होता है ह्यूमन नेचर बदलता नहीं है। स्टॉक मार्केट के अंदर इन्वेस्टिंग बिहेवियर ऑलवेज प्लेज अ वेरी लार्ज रोल। सो जैसा बफेट साहब और राकेश जी कहते थे, विशाल साहब भी बोलेंगे हमारे शो पर आज कि व्हाट मैटर्स इन द मार्केट इट इज़ नॉट IQ बट इट इज़ EQ। और उस EQ को हम बात करते हैं, ह्यूमन नेचर की बात करते हैं। एंड विशाल हैज कम आउट विद दिस लवली पोस्ट कपल ऑफ ईयर्स अगो एंड इट वाज रिटन ऑन दशहरा डे एज टू व्हाट आर द डीमंस ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग। अब हिंदी रूपांतर तो नहीं बोलूँगा मगर डीमंस ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग ही बोलूँगा इनको मैं। विशाल, फर्स्ट विश यू अ वेरी वेरी हैप्पी दशहरा। थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर जॉइनिंग अस।
Thank you, Nikunj, for inviting me on your show again, and wishing you and your entire team members and family a very happy Dussehra.
So Vishal, you are a master of human behavior. You are a student of market, behavior. This post which you had written couple of years ago, it's a कहते हैं ना कि एक गोल्डन अक्षर की जो आपने पोस्ट लिखी थी वो काफ़ी रेलेवेंट है दशहरा के समय। तो 10 डिमंस ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग उनकी आज बात करते हैं। और सबसे पहले होता है एनवी, ईर्ष्या, कि मेरे पास नहीं है पड़ोसी के पास है, उसने स्टॉक मार्केट में पैसा बनाया मैंने नहीं गंवाया, अब मुझे ऐसा कुछ करना पड़ेगा कि मैं उससे ज़्यादा कमाऊँ, तो मैं रिस्क लेता हूँ या फिर मैं जेलसी में अपना रिस्क मैनेजमेंट छोड़ देता हूँ। डू यू थिंक एनवी इज परहैप्स द बिगेस्ट और वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट डेमन्स ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग?
I think you rightly said, Nikunj, envy is certainly the biggest demon of investing. I think Hindi Rupantar, so Rakshas, I can say Rakshas, right? Nivesh ke liye. So I think you mentioned that I am a master of human behavior. I think if I call myself a master, I think that will be not a right way to start this thing. I think it's always a student kind of a thing, which I think of myself as well. अपने आप को मास्टर कहना itself is I think diminished, so to use that term. Envy, I think हम जितना उसके बारे में पढ़ें, जितना उसके बारे में समझें, and we always think that comparisons with others is a wrong thing, right? But the problem starts in our childhood, right? हमको सिखाया जाता है कि आपको अपने क्लासमेट से ज्यादा अच्छे नंबर लाने, और अगर अच्छे नंबर नहीं लाए तो हमको सुनाया भी जाता है कि शर्मा जी के बेटे ने या वर्मा जी की बेटी ने आपसे अच्छा परफॉर्म किया. So we start getting envious of people, right? Right from early childhood, and that carries on into our adulthood and growing up years. So especially when it comes to topics like money, when we see others making money faster, when we see their portfolios growing faster, when we see others, even our friends, owning stocks which are growing faster and creating more wealth for them than ourselves. आई थिंक वो एनवी का जो सीड है अपने दिमाग में पनपने लग जाता है, बहुत बहुत बड़ा पेड़ बन जाता है, एंड इट्स वेरी हार्ड टू कंट्रोल दैट इमोशन of getting envious, and ultimately it leads us to make a lot of mistakes in investing. अगर envy की बात करूं, आई थिंक तो दुनिया के सबसे स्मार्टेस्ट, वाइजेस्ट और द मोस्ट इंटेलिजेंट ह्यूमंस जो एवर has ever been born on earth, Isaac Newton, right? So Isaac Newton का कहानी सबको पता है, और अगर नहीं पता तो उनको पढ़ना चाहिए कैसे आइजैक न्यूटन ने अराउंड 1700 एडी में एक साउथ सी कंपनी था यूके में, उसमें इन्वेस्ट किया, काफी पैसा कमाया, 3 महीने में वो उनका जो इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑलमोस्ट 6 टाइम्स हो गया. उन्होंने वो शेयर बेच दिया बिकॉज ही सेड दैट आई कैन कैलकुलेट द मोशन ऑफ स्टार्स बट नॉट द मैडनेस ऑफ पीपल, एंड 6 टाइम्स इन 3 months इज लाइक अ मैडनेस ऑफ पीपल इन द स्टॉक मार्केट. बट उसके बाद क्या हुआ, उसके बाद क्योंकि आइजैक न्यूटन ने वो शेयर बेच दिया, वो शेयर और भी बढ़ने लगा, राइट? एंड आइजैक न्यूटन ने देखा कि उनके his friends were getting richer faster, and that was a moment of envy and jealousy for the smartest and wisest person on earth ever. आइजैक न्यूटन ने उस स्टॉक के पीक पे वापस से पैसा लगाया बिकॉज उनसे देखा नहीं जा रहा था कि उनके दोस्त हैं उनसे ज्यादा पैसा कमा रहे हो स्टॉक. When he invested a lot of money at the peak of the South Sea bubble, and when it burst, he just did not lose his money, he also lost his reputation as an investor. सो अगर दुनिया का सबसे महान, सबसे समझदार वैज्ञानिक भी अगर स्टॉक मार्केट में एनवी को कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकता है, तो आई थिंक वी आर mere mortals. So I think knowing about envy and knowing that it's a demon which is always lurking behind us, always lurking in our mind, I think it's a first step to try to minimize it. I would not say that we can control envy. We are living in a very social environment, right? In an age of social media, where everyone seems to be getting richer faster, everyone seems to be making a lot more money than us. I think the better thing for us to do is to just minimize that emotion so that it helps us in making lesser investment mistakes.
But Vishal, how can one stay calm when you are getting compared or when you are getting challenged, both on an absolute basis, on a relative basis? हम फंड मैनेजर्स की बात कर लें जो बोलते हैं जी इन्वेस्ट फॉर द लॉन्ग टर्म, मगर हर महीने हर क्वार्टर में हमको वो एक रिपोर्ट भेजते हैं कि जी हम टॉप क्वार्टाइल पे हैं, बाकी फंड मैनेजर्स बॉटम क्वार्टाइल पे हैं। जहाँ फंड मैनेजर्स जो बड़ी लंबी लंबी बात करते हैं वह अगर मंथली कंपैरिजन बोलते हैं तो ये एनवी हुई या कंपैरिजन हुआ?
I think comparison is a seed for envy. So comparison earlier is probably is very subtle, right? आप समझते नहीं है. You are not even envious when you are starting to compare things. But over a period of time, if in comparison or in relative terms, if you are underperforming as a fund manager, right, that sense of envy starts to creep in, right? So comparison becomes the root cause for envy over a period of time. आई थिंक जैसे इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेटअप में आप काम कर रहे हैं या कोई मनी मैनेजर है या यू आर मैनेजिंग मनी फॉर अदर्स एंड ऑलवेज कंपेयर्ड ऑन अ डेली बेसिस, मोमेंट बाय मोमेंट बेसिस, दैट इन गेटिंग ओवर दैट कंपैरिजन, गेटिंग ओवर दैट एनवी और अवॉइडिंग दैट एनवी completely, I think is a very very difficult task. But I think for most investors who are listening to this show, I think when you are an individual managing your own money, I think it is I would not say it's a easy task to manage your envy, but I think agar if you shut out the noise out, right? If you play, as Buffett says, play the game with an inner scorecard, and not just Buffett. I think भगवान कृष्ण ने भी अर्जुन को ये उपदेश दिया था, राइट? कि महाभारत का जो वॉर था, so महाभारत का war was not an outside war. It is always a war within, right? If you can fight that war on your own, if you can shut out the noise which is out there, which is telling you how you are faring badly compared to others or poorly compared to others, I think if you can just play your own game, listening to your inner scorecard, and just stop worrying about what the world thinks that you are doing. I think that is one of the ways of minimizing envy. In an institutional setup, I know it is difficult, but I think it's entirely your inner compass that drives you towards envy or not.
The second human behavior which I want to bring out is actually greed. Now, greed is something which all of us know is always a very dangerous path to walk on. But greed means you want more. Greed means that you're not happy with what you have. But when I look at investors, they say, boss, when you are in stock market, always have the desire to want more, be long-term investor, think not 5 years, 10 years or 15 years. Because you want more, you are sticking to long-term. So how does one measure greed when it comes to differentiating with versus long-term investing?
See, I think when it comes to long-term investing, there are multiple ways of looking at what long-term investing is all about. So when I look at long-term investing, I look at long-term ownership in businesses, right? I know that I want to earn or create wealth from equities, from stocks where I'm investing in, और जो business में मैं पैसा डाल रहा हूँ, वो business grow करेगा तो मुझे पैसा मिलेगा, right? But I am not there investing in those business just because I want to accumulate enough money or as much money as I can compared to what others are doing. So again, these demons are all interrelated, right? When you are envious of others, you also become greedier because you want to earn money faster and you want to earn much more than what others are earning because you are envious, right? But when I invest in businesses for the long term, just for the purpose of staying put in those businesses, just trusting the management and the business quality to help me create wealth so that I'm able to maintain my purchasing power, मैं अपने फाइनेंशियल गोल्स मीट करूं, राइट? एंड दैट्स ऑल आई नीड, राइट? आई डोंट वांट to die with a million or crore or crores of rupees in in my bank account. I think that's when someone said that's a most unfortunate thing to happen to someone, that you die and you leave a million or $1 billion in your bank account unused, right? Of course you want to leave a lot of money and a lot of wealth for your kids and your family who survives after you. But I think हम लोगों को एक बहुत important question के बारे में सोचना चाहिए एंड कोशिश करनी चाहिए उसको आंसर करने के लिए. दैट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन इज हाउ मच इज इनफ. right? We don't have a definition for that. And again, coming to the same point again, when you are looking at the world and investing from an outer scorecard, when everyone is winning compared to you, right? So that is where that greed element comes in. That is where the envy element comes in. But when you're working with an inner scorecard, that this is enough for me, right? Enough does not mean that you go to the Himalayas and you meditate and you don't do anything in life. I'm not suggesting that. When I say enough, it simply means that I need that much money which can help me meet my financial goals. And if that comes from investing in so and so companies and just forgetting about my investments rather than searching for the next big multi-bagger and trading in stocks and speculating in stocks and doing all those kind of things that are available today, I think some multitude of financial products out there. You don't need to invest in all of them, right? Even if something is promising a higher return, you don't need to look at those. Keep your life simple, right? Stay away from envy, right? Keep your greed under control. I think desire is the root of unhappiness, and the greater your desire is, the more unhappier you will be in life. So of course, being human means having desires, but have the right kind of desires, and always put a limit to what you desire in life rather than anything that you would want to have in life.
Vishal, the third point is herding, what could be called as herd mentality. Follow what others are doing, follow what crowd is doing, because it's very easy. It's very easy. Now, it's very easy for us to say that don't follow the herd. But in stock market, herd following, I think perhaps is the most common behavior. What is wrong in following the herd? Because ultimately, as investors, all of us have learned that we must follow and clone some of the great investors. So if you're following them, how are we differentiating there? And how are we differentiating when it comes to herding versus cloning?
See, the way our brains have evolved over millions and billions of years, right? Herding has saved us, right? So, agar आज से हजारों साल पहले, for example, our ancestors, they were in jungles, right? अगर किसी को बुश के पीछे से एक शेर की आवाज आती या उसके शेर के चलने की आवाज आती है, they thought there was a mammoth or a big lion who would eat them, right? The first instinct, the first reaction would be to run, and the others around that person are not going to would not have like been sitting there and thinking, oh no, this guy is running, I don't need to run because I am a wiser person, I think it's a deer, it's not a lion, right? So everyone is going to run in such a situation, and that is how our minds have evolved. If someone shouts bomb in a crowded place, yeah, you are not going to think about it, you are going to follow that herding mentality and run out of safety. But the problem in investing and the problem in other areas of life where it's not a matter of life and death is that we, rather than using the reflexive part of our brain where we use the reflexes and make instant reaction like 2 plus 2 is 4, we can be reflective of our actions and decisions that we take, right? And investing is a great place to be reflective rather than looking at the stock price which is rising and thinking in a reflex action, okay, stock price has risen over the last 3 months, that and everyone's talking great about the stock price, iska matlab stock is good, let me go and buy. No, you stop, you pause, you reflect, you think, rather than just following what most other people are doing. So herding, I think, is a different concept than cloning. Cloning means copying, but copying sensibly, right? So cloning has been made popular by Monish Pabrai. So people who don't know him, he's another great investor out there. So Monish made this concept of cloning, which simply means that you copy what the best investors are doing, but to also use your brains into what you're copying. It's not blind copy paste, right? So blind copy paste is herding, but sensible copy paste, when it applies, when it suits you, right? And again, you are a long-term thinker, long-term investor, I think that's cloning in a positive sense. So clone, definitely clone, but use your brains instead of herding blindly, right? So because blind herding can lead you to disaster even when there is none, right? So selling when everyone else is selling just because there is a virus and there is a war somewhere else, right? And you want to sell because everyone is like very scared and say that this is the end of the world, I think that is herding, right? But when you see a successful investor, a very wise person around you, for example, buying a stock when others are selling, right? You simply don't go and buy that stock blindly. You copy that investor's thought process. You understand why did that investor buy that stock, and then you copy that if it suits your requirements. When you do that, you are cloning, and I think that's perfectly fine. Herding is a demon for sure, but cloning is not.
stock market, Vishal, some would argue and say that that is perhaps a market where fear and greed, they coexist. We've spoken about greed. Now let's talk about the next human emotion. You know, Buffett's favorite line is, it's very simple to make money, sell greed, buy fear. बड़ी simple line है, greed बेचिए, fear लीजिए. But both these emotions, they coexist. Bottom of the crack in COVID, it was only fear. In some small cap stocks right now, there is a lot of greed. Do you think the simple way of making money in the stock market, which has time and proven worked again and again, is to buy fear? And one should embrace fear?
No, I think Buffett ka jo pura statement tha, he said investing is simple, but then he also said, but it's not easy, right? So knowing about fear and greed is one thing, but acting when there is greed in the market and you being fearful, like Buffett says, and being fearful when others are greedy, I think it's a very difficult thing to do. Even with experience, you learn the hard way that's actually a very difficult thing to do. So I think fear is also one of the leading emotions, leading demons in markets, and I would doubt a person who says that I have no fear, investing or otherwise, right? I've not known a single human being I've known of. I'm sure there may be fearless human beings out there, but fearless human beings also have fear, right? So the only people who are supposedly fearless, I think, are stupid people, are idiot people, to use that word. And I see a lot of them adventurous, a lot of those adventurous people out there who trade in derivatives blindly, who do bitcoins, cryptocurrencies blindly. I think that's on the verge of stupidity. But I think being fearful is an appropriate emotion because fear helps you save yourself, right? So if you remember, Charlie Munger uses a very nice quotation when he says that all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I will not go there. So when he says that, he is evoking a fear emotion. So I need to know where I'm going to die, so I'm fearful of going at that place, right? So the problem is not fear. It is never fear. The problem is what we do despite of that fear, right? The problem is how we can be courageous in the face of that fear. So whether it's COVID, whether it's a 2008 financial crisis, whether earlier it was the dot-com bust, right? So people who survived to tell the tale, to tell the story of how they picked the appropriate stocks during when the world was going crazy, right? But those guys who were fearful at that point of time, but went beyond that fear to have the courage to invest their money again for a long-term perspective, right? So I think fear is a demon, but I think an appropriate thing for most investor to do is to control, manage that fear effectively rather than give into it. So be fearful. My advice is be fearful and then be courageous.
Now, Vishal, the most controversial topic, trading. Yes, trading. You're calling trading as one of the demons of wealth creation. Now, the question which I often get is that I don't have the capital. How do I start investing? I need to trade to generate seed capital so that I can start investing. Trading gives me instant gratification. Trading is easy and the ROI is the highest. So there are great successful traders, but there are a lot of unsuccessful traders also, and the number of unsuccessful traders is high. In your experience, and if you can spend some time on it, that why are you calling this as the demon of investing?
So, Nikunj, trading, I would not call a demon of investing, but I think something which precedes trading, which is overconfidence. I think that is a demon of investing. So people can be investors and be overconfident, right? And people can be traders and can be overconfident, right? So people, I see when you say very few investors, very few traders make money. I agree with that, and there's a huge majority of traders who do not make money, right? So I think that huge majority of traders that do not make money, I think, are bitten by this emotion or demon called overconfidence, because they start believing that it's their skill that can help them make money quickly, and trading is the easy way to get rich. And I think that's the reason I would say probably 99% of people out there. Earlier I thought it was 90%, but in the last few years I've come to believe probably 99% of people out there are trading in some way or the other. So trading that way is not bad. The only thing is that when you combine that with overconfidence and you think that trading can be a easy and a simple way of making money, and I can do that because I know there are so many rich traders out there, right? So there I think something that we know as survivorship bias plays a great role there. We only know of the survivors out there in investing as well, but more so in trading, because the graveyard of traders who who've not survived is huge, right? But we only focus on people who survived, the rare few who survived, and we look at that. So I think trading that way is dangerous if you're overconfident, if you don't use your stop losses, if I were to use that term, because I don't know much about trading, right? But I think I've seen so many families and so many individuals getting their hands burnt and pockets burnt and wealth destroyed because they thought that stock market is a casino. Stock market is an easy way of making riches. People come to the stock market to become wealthy. I would advise, and I advise every individual who's coming to the stock market, don't look at the markets to make you rich. Look at the markets to keep you rich. Your work, your earnings from your work, your job, whatever you are doing, should be the way to help you become rich. And the savings that you generate from that job, that income, which is outside the stock market, you invest that sensibly, right? And think about the long term, right? I remember that dialogue from the movie Three Idiots in the starting the movie when they are ragging the students, right? And I think one of the students wanted to read something before that ragging, and the person who was ragging said, "Jaldi kisko hai?" Right? The question again, when you talk about people who wanted to create that capital initially, right? I would say the same thing. Why are you in such a hurry, right? To create a capital, why can't you work towards your work, your job, other focus in life, right, to create that capital, and gradually we grow that capital sensibly in the stock market through investing sensibly, or even trading sensibly if you can learn to trade well. But don't start from day one thinking that you are a know all kind of a trader and you know it everything and you know how to manage risk and nothing is going to happen to me, right? This is a thought process which applies to all areas of life, right? I go to a hospital, I see people dying, I see people dying of heart attacks and all those things, and the first thing is, this is not going to happen to me. Even if I know that I consume all those bad food products, I maintain an unhealthy lifestyle, I think this is not going to happen to me. I think that's a mentality with all most traders as well, overconfidence that this is not going to happen to me. I think this happens to most people, right? So avoid the overconfidence, whether you're investor or trader, and I think you will avoid the demon that I'm talking about here.
Vishal, we've covered a lot of aspects which may differentiate you if you really adopt these simple, not laws or principles, but a very simple human basic approach. But over the years, the world has changed. Information availability is abundant. News is widely distributed. Do you think investors per se, because of availability of information and availability of views, they're far more mature than what they were, let's say, 20 years ago?
Far more mature in terms of consuming information, but I think far less mature in terms of digesting that information, right? So we also have a plenty of food available, but you look at the amount of diseases that have skyrocketed because we cannot digest that food well, the kind of food that we are eating, right? In the same way, the kind of information that is available everywhere at a click of a button, right? Or even now today, without the click of a button, you think and then information is available in front of you, right? I think knowing how to digest that information, knowing and being able to differentiate between information with a short shelf life and information with a long shelf life, and focusing largely on information with a long shelf life, I think these are ways of living in a world which is awash with information and still remaining sane, right? So reading stuff which has been written maybe thousands of years back or decades back, right, focusing on information which is going to matter in the long run rather than the short run. I'm not denigrating the short run, because the long run is made of a lot of short runs, right? What is happening with the business today or the next month or the next year is going to determine over a period of time what's going to happen in the next 10 years. So I'm not denying the role of short term here. But again, when I am thinking about short term, I am also looking at it from a long term point of view, right? What are the decisions the business is going to take today, which are going to impact it positively or negatively in the long run, right? See, in business analysis, we use a term called DCF, which is discounted cash flow, which is a way of valuing a stock, right? So I think that's a great way of to invest or to live with a DCF frame of mind, right? So what does DCF frame of mind simply suggest? It simply suggests that when you are looking at short-term news items, maybe a short-term panic or short-term euphoria, always ask this question: is this going to affect the long-term cash flows of the business or not? Right? If not, then you should not be worried about the short-term news, positive or negative. If yes, if the short-term event is going to help or hurt the long-term cash flows, then you should be worried or you should be excited about that short-term stuff as well. But I think knowing essentially how to digest the food that you eat and the news that you consume. I think that's a secret to living and surviving sanely in this world, which is full of good and bad food and good and bad information and news.
It's all about choices which you make in life, which will differentiate what you do and where you reach. So final question, Vishal. दशहरा है, दिवाली आने वाली है. दशहरा इज विक्ट्री ऑफ गुड ओवर इविल, मगर लक्ष्मी पूजा दिवाली पर होती है. तो अगर आपको एक कैरिकेचर बनाना हो कि जैसे आपने कैरिकेचर बनाया 10 डीमंस ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग, की कैरिकेचर एक आपको बनाना हो जिसके अंदर 10 थिंग्स टू अट्रैक्ट लक्ष्मी, तो उसमें आप कैसे बनाएंगे?
लक्ष्मी जी का कैरिकेचर बनाऊंगा, उसके लिए सबसे पहले मैं सरस्वती जी का कैरिकेचर बनाऊंगा, बिकॉज इन्वेस्टिंग में हम लोग लक्ष्मी जी के लिए आते हैं, बट जो पीपल हु सर्वाइव द लॉन्ग टर्म आर दोज गाइज हु एक्चुअली सरस्वती जी के साथ जाते हैं, राइट? सो सरस्वती मीन्स द गॉडेस ऑफ विजडम हियर, राइट? सो द मोर यू लर्न, the more humble you are, the more you realize that you know nothing, right? And that's the reason you keep learning and keep improving yourself, I think. And if you focus on those aspects and keep working hard, I think लक्ष्मी जी आपके साथ रहेंगी. So सरस्वती जी पे ध्यान दीजिए, लक्ष्मी जी आपके साथ रहेंगी.
क्या बात है विशाल, every time I interact with you just learn something new and fascinating. I really appreciate your time and thank you for joining us on ET Now.
Thank you, Nikunj. Thank you so much.